I was going through those tough times. I developed a sort of 5-step plan to success: dream, plan, execute, achieve, and give back. And big emphasis on dreaming, big emphasis on giving back. When you start with your dreaming, it's like, oh, well, you're dreaming. It's just sitting back and thinking, but it's really visualizing, right? What is it that you want? Then after you figure out what is it that you want, where you want to be, let's sit down and do the self-assessment, draw out that plan. Then I say you have to work relentlessly in executing on that plan. And then once you get that achievement, you don't rest on your laurels there. Now it's time to look back and give back.
Welcome to Mission Control. At Peralta Design, we launch brands. But for now, let's launch right into this episode.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Welcome to this episode of Mission Control. This is your host, Ramon Peralta with Peralta Design, and we launch brands. And we've got a great episode in store for you. We have this bright young man that made such a great impression on me on this diversity panel. Please welcome Mr. Jermaine Brookshire Jr, Esquire.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Jermaine, you're with Wiggin and Dana LLP.
Yes.
Yes, out of New Haven.
Yes.
All right. Corporate lawyer.
Yes. And Wiggin and Dana, we have several offices across Connecticut and several in different states too. So Philly, New York, Palm Beach, Florida. So yeah, we're around.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you get to float around a little bit?
Well, you could float around to everywhere except for the Palm Beach location. They make it very difficult for you to have business down there, right? I don't know what's the deal.
Oh, I hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's at a nice country club.
Yeah,
and
it's really good.
Golf course. You're also a wrestler and professional football player.
So I love wrestling. Wrestling to me is like my anchor. I was teased about it a little bit from friends and even joining the firm because I was like, wait a minute. WWE, that's my thing. Like that's what I go to because ask some questions like, oh well, what do you know about them? I'm like, well, they went to the stock market in early 2000, 1999 is when they shot this show, and they're like, why do you know this? Hey.
Yeah, they were curious. You know way too much about wrestling.
Exactly.
So you've always been a big fan?
Big fan. Yep.
Oh, nice. My dad's job in Stanford used to work for a bearings company. They're no longer there. They went back to Germany, but their headquarters was right next to the old, back when that was WWF headquarters. And I was a huge wrestling fan. So that was the best because every time I went to my dad's job, my whole mission was just, what wrestlers can I see? Yeah.
The nexus for me now as an adult is just, I'm just amazed at the business of it, right? So you have a company that is really it was just a wrestling company growing into an entertainment company that's a multi-billion-dollar corporation, over 170 countries nationwide, and yet the market seems to be a little bit smaller, but yet they're making more money than ever. And it's just crazy to me that like this thing that is sort of kind of still taboo is bringing in so much big business. So to me, it's just phenomenal. So,
It is. It's wild because, I mean, I grew up, of course, I'm going to date myself here, but Andre the Giant, Junkyard Dog, right?
Iron Sheik.
Sergeant Slaughter. Horsing around with your buddies trying to do the figure 4 leg lock.
I love that. Back when all you needed was a racial stereotype, and you had a character.
Each had one. Like you had your own
British Bulldog.
And for me, it was
Polish
getting
power.
in trouble with D-Generation X and doing all of that stuff. And it was a lot.
Yeah.
I thought was cool too, because I remember the original XFL was Vince McMahon that tried to bring it.
Yeah.
And even though that kind of failed miserably, a lot of the technology, like the replay, the cameras, all
the
of
way
that.
the cameras move. Yeah, I mean it's very innovative. And then seeing The Rock, with his ex-wife.
They took that over.
Again, it's power. So like I said, even if you're not a fan anymore of wrestling, you can't ignore the business behind that.
Right.
And again, it's just great. And it's just about, seeing the opportunity, working as hard as you dream. And that's sort of like the story of them. And it's something that I've sort of carried through even with myself. So
yeah, and you're a big fan of The Rock, I hear.
Oh yeah, super fan of The Rock. So I got to first see him. I was in a room at the Monday Night Raw. He showed up as a surprise. This is like 2016. So when you're at a show, there's like usually a commercial playing and this, that, and the third. So we thought it was a commercial showing like clips of the old school guys. Man, you hear if you smell them, I'm like, what's going on? Then you hear everyone get louder. I look up, oh, The Rock. And then grown men, we
Were
over
you like
here
a
looking,
fanboy?
Oh yeah, we started hugging for no reason. I don't know this guy. We're hugging. Oh my goodness, The Rock. And he came out.
You're
and
hugging
it was just,
because he was in your presence.
it was just yes. It was just.
He just brings love wherever he
And
goes.
it was just like literally his whole theme is I'm electrifying the whole. It was electrifying.
the energy is insane.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting to see him. He's fighting April 6th at WrestleMania in Philly, and so I'll be there.
So he's coming out of retirement for this.
Oh yeah, so he's fighting with his cousin Roman Reigns, who's like the big bad guy right now of the whole Samoan dynasty family.
Yeah.
So yeah, this year should be really nostalgic. It's a 40 years of WrestleMania. Philly's gonna be crazy. So I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully rubbing some elbows with some cool people that different parties. I'm going to Wale's having a party on Thursday in Philly for it. He does his big Wale Mania party because he's a big wrestling fan. So I'm looking for a good full blast.
You could pass as
awesome.
one of the wrestlers.
Hey man, I'm trying. Listen, working out is my anchor.
I'm telling you. So you think that is the Tonga kid still with us? I know Jimmy Snuka had passed away, but some of these other
some of
Samoans.
them, yeah. So the line is very, very thick. So The Rock's daughter is actually wrestling now too. But yeah, there's like at least 8 of them right now in the WWE, and then maybe another 5 to 6 in other smaller brands. But yeah, they're a group right now. It's called the Bloodline, and it's really fun because. Again, The Rock is a bad guy now, and he's usually like so nice and bubblegummy, but now he's like yelling at people and calling us silly, and I'm like, I'm here for it. Yes, Mr. Rock Johnson.
And he's just gotten like through all the Fast and Furious movies, like bigger and bigger and bigger.
But I will say my fandom of him like really comes from I've heard him say this quote of it's important to be nice, but it's more everyone wants to be. It's important to be nice, but it's nice to be everyone wants to be important, but it's more important to be nice, basically. So just the idea of like, no matter how big you get in your stature or whatever, just be concerned about people. And for me, one of the biggest highlights of that, there's this picture of Barack Obama walking in a building, and there's this worker that's doing janitorial services. And then you see all these important people, and then you see Barack Obama, who's actually has a nickname they call him Rock, fist bumping that janitorial service person. And so it's just something that I sort of think of and
It says
carry.
something about treat everyone with the same respect if it's the CEO or the janitor.
Exactly. And I really love that. I mean, being in a career that's really ego driven, like, come on. Lawyers, we get a bad rap, and some of it I can understand, but I just really think it's like you have to treat people kindly, and even if you are my adversary, it's something I think about. It still leave you with your dignity, right? So I can agree with you, but still doing about it in a dignified way, because at the end of the day, we're still humans. We have feelings, we have emotions, even the most bravado of us. And I think if we leave with that, then we can have a more amicable sort of, even if it's a disagreement, but we could still come back to the table.
Correct. And there's also this aspect of the escape of wrestling that I think you appreciate. You mentioned your dad was also a fan.
Yeah. So one of my earliest memories actually is going to wrestling with my dad at the New Haven Coliseum. And I really remember
that's back in the day because that's now like a parking lot or something.
Yeah. So the New Haven Coliseum to me had like the worst exhaust system because I remember like anytime there was fireworks, you were like sitting in fog for a little bit. And then, being a 90s baby, I was also big on Power Rangers. So I'd always felt like I was going into like Zordon's lair. Like it was such of a big eyesore. But I do remember going there and being so excited. He got me this silly chain. And it's like whatever's underneath like fake gold cubic zirconia is what they sold. When I tell you that thing was bent and mangled, but you could not take that off of me, okay? Which is my chain. Boy, you're going to church. No, my chain. So, yeah, it's great. But yeah, for
you were
me,
into it, man.
yeah, for me, like, again, it was it's mindless fun. And even as an adult, it's like I do so much serious stuff, have this, that, and the third, that it's just like, it's the mental break, right? And it's something that I think about of like the marathon of life. Being a type A person who seeks to accomplish so much, you also need to give yourself permission to take a break. Because something that I wish I learned in law school, and even before that, when I was working for the New York State Assembly, I used to work for the legislature in New York, was that like you do all this grinding and grinding and grinding. You wear it as a badge of honor. Oh, not sleeping, blah, blah, blah. But then like how effective are you on day 3 without sleep?
Right.
So
it's not sustainable.
Yeah, and it started me just having a value for still doing well while being well. And it's something that I try to teach younger lawyers and law students and stuff now. It's like, think about this stuff now. Yes, you need to put in the work, but part of you being able to put in the work is you being well, and you got to take care of yourself.
Yeah, that levity and having fun, enjoying life. And
yeah,
I do want to shout out my father-in-law, rest in peace, but he passed away earlier this year, but he was a big wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Watched every Monday Night Raw.
Yep.
You know, he lived to be in his 90s. But,
that's beautiful.
And he knew all of the, the soap opera, like the storylines behind the characters and because they get to bad rap. People are like, well, wrestling's fake. Well, it's like, it's entertainment.
But then, but then everyone go and watch the Avengers. I'm like, it's basically the Avengers, but it's live in front of you.
Right. And who was it? Ric Flair, who said wrestling's not fake. Yeah. It's choreographed.
Yeah, choreographed.
Because like
scripted,
they really get hurt.
Yeah, they do.
Listen, I've had the privilege before of being inside a ring, and it's not.
Is it really like a trampoline?
No, there's steel, there is plywood. Then there's, like in the gym, or if you've been to any high school or collegiate wrestling, it's that mat. And then there's a canvas over it. So, and at the very bottom are microphones to help the boom sound for it. But that's what they're slamming on. Their bodies are going to it. And I guarantee you, anybody untrained, you go take a body slam on that, you're gonna really roll and say, how do y'all do this? So it's respect. Yeah.
They're athletes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep. So we can't wait to hear your story when we come back right after these words.
Guys, if you enjoyed anything on the show today, found anything of value, we would appreciate it if you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us grow, helps us promote other businesses, and help us launch your brand.
Jermaine, so you gave us a glimpse into what you like to do for fun, and I love it because corporate attorney just sounds like such a serious moniker to have, but it was nice to kind of chop it up over wrestling. So we really want to hear your story. So take us back to where it all began.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut. Came out of now non-existent, but St. Raphael's Hospital. So life for me was quite tumultuous being in New Haven, in and out of domestic violence shelters with my mom. There was a lot going on at home. So one of my bits of refuge was like doing well in school. And I've had the privilege of since talking to some of my teachers from back then saying, yeah, I always did well, so I understand why you did not think that something was going wrong. But the kid that shows up at school an hour early, then stays there until like 7, 8 o'clock at night, yeah, something must be up.
He's trying not to go home right away.
Yeah. But it's giving them grace, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so much. And I mean, just the honest thing with New Haven Public Schools, which I'm a proud product of, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And so they need to focus on the kids that are, not doing well academically or misbehaving. So I see where that blind spot naturally happens. And I think that's why even today, like I try to share my story because for me, yeah, it sucked going through it, but I think it helped me develop a sort of grit that when I first, just to be honest, saw my name on the wall at my office at Wiggin, I teared up, had to close the door and really have a moment because it just was really like a cathartic experience for me. Literally being born in New Haven, now at a top law firm in Connecticut, in New Haven, and the location is a spot that I used to drive by on the M bus going to Wilbur Cross, and then now I have an office on the 19th floor there. Like, that's literally something you just write in a book.
It's a dream.
Yeah. So and I carry that through, right? Because there were so many reasons, even though I did well academically, why I felt like the dream of becoming a lawyer, going to college and being successful was so far out for me, because I was so worried about the day to day. And I think that's why even today I give so much grace to people going through a hard season, because you're like, oh, well, you need to plan for this. You need to have 6 months of savings. I'm like, if someone's worried about having bread and eggs for tomorrow, you really think they're thinking about 6 months emergency fund? So what is it that we can do to possibly help them get to that goal? But again, this phrase that has become popular now, meeting them where they are. And I think that it's so much power in that, because for me, I needed to be met with first saying, hey, you've been through traumatic experiences that you may have thought were like normal because they were normal for you. They're not normal. You can feel how you feel, but let me tell you something. I need you not to stop. And it was me having people who really care, who saw, okay, he's trying, but apparently there needs to be some intervention to help him get to this next step. That really helped me. So I ended up going to the College of St. Rose in Albany, New York. Graduated from there, did really well there. Then knew that I still needed something before going to law school. So I worked for the New York State Assembly as a committee assistant for the Labor and Insurance Committees, quickly rose up through the ranks to an analyst for labor. And I had so much fun doing that job, but then I also felt like, I need more. And just being honest, I felt overworked and underpaid. So I said, go back to school. So that's when from 8 p.m. to midnight, I took Kaplan LSAT classes, preparing for the LSAT. And I share the hours because it was after working a long day doing that. But it's like, hey, this is the means to the end, right? And of course, I didn't like it. But as you know, you sometimes have to do things you don't like to get to where you want to be. Right. Hated. I personally don't really like school. But again, it's utilizing and leveraging that to get where I want to. And it's why I speak so freely about that, even after speaking at college and universities, spoke at the Yale Innovation Summit and this and the third. And I say I'm the best person to talk to your students about, because I will tell them, hey, you don't have to like it in order to do well and excel at it, right? What is your goal? Where are you trying to get to? And what is the purpose? And I tell people, if you do the self-assessment to figure out what your why is, you can accomplish anything. And I think that is something that I really hold true, because from all the tough stuff that was thrown my way, my bedrock is I did not let my circumstances determine my success. And that's something that I'm carrying through as I navigate the different challenges of being a corporate lawyer now, being at a firm of about 167 attorneys, quite competitive, still trying to find my set of mentors, so that way I can figure out, who I can lean on for those days that I'm like, I feel so unmotivated. I don't know what I'm doing. Was this really the right path? But then again, still pushing forward, right? And so it's why I'm a part of the Connecticut Bar Association's executive committee. I do lawyer well-being, civics education. All of that stuff is important, because I'm trying to show you need to be involved and engaged, but the biggest thing is you have to give back. And just a quick back to the story of me growing up. When I was going through those tough times, I developed a sort of 5-step plan to success. I called them a 5 Gen 6 success. It's dream, plan, execute, achieve, and give back. And big emphasis on dreaming, big emphasis on giving back. Because I think that when you start with your dreaming, it's like, oh, well, you're dreaming. It's just sitting back and thinking. But it's really visualizing, right? What is it, again, that you want to, what is it that you want? Then after you figure out what is it that you want, where you want to be, let's sit down and do the self-assessment, draw out that plan. Then I say you have to work relentlessly in executing on that plan. And then once you get that achievement, you don't rest on your laurels there. Now it's time to look back and give back. And it's a stage that's sort of like a rinse and repeat, but I'm fortunate enough to say that now I'm in the give back stage. I'm vice chair of the board for Horizons at the Foot School, which is a program that offers inner city students an intensive academic and enrichment program for free. And it's been a great a ride with them because I could see myself in those students, right? If this program was around when I was a kid, I would have definitely been there during the summer, learning how to swim in Albertus Magnus and making sweaters and knitting and doing all this really cool stuff. But then also too, helping to make sure that we are increasing reading scores for our New Haven public school students, helping with math, and then also helping just with confidence. So one of the things I really enjoy is that in those classrooms, there's this social emotional learning focus where the students can go in and they can use on a board. It tells the class, how they're feeling for the day. And it's just having them have the ability to sort of do that and react to it. But then again, show them like, even if you're having a bad day, we still need you to show up. But let's talk about how that may be different from if you have a good day. And I'm like, that's something we need to have at our law firm offices and everywhere else. Because I feel like it wasn't until the later stages in my life where I started to embrace that it's okay not to be okay, but there needs to be a positive response to those feelings. And I think a positive, healthy response, especially being a Black man in this day and age, is don't ignore the feelings, but let's figure out how we can consciously, intentionally, and positively move forward from it. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, so inspiring, and I don't want to gloss over the adversity you overcame, but how did you avoid the pitfalls? Because it seems like if home life was unstable, not every kid's going to decide that being in school is where they should be. They go to the streets.
Yeah.
So what was it that made you go that way?
Yeah. So the good thing is that I vainly started to like the adulation from the school and administrators about when I'm doing well. Oh, you just did this again.
That
Spelling
feeling
bee
of like,
champ.
recognition.
Doing this, doing that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I want more of that. Yeah. Come on now. What else you want me to do?
Yeah.
And so that was really like my drug, my getaway from that was constantly finding those things to do more of. And then I started to see like, oh, if you really keep doing well, these people may help you get to your next bigger goal. You don't know anything about FAFSA or getting to college. Let me just show them that I'm doing everything I feel like I have in my control. Can you please help me with this next level? And it's a skill that I stumbled upon then that I feel like carries me through now, which I tell young lawyers, I say, hey, you may not know the substantive piece, but when you're joining this firm, try to do the things that you know you can do well. Don't send me something with typos. If you said you're going to get it to me by 5, make sure it's there on time. So it's those things, and we can worry about the substance afterwards, but at least let me see you come with something. And I think that's been like my biggest superpower is that I understand that in order for you to even want to help me, even if you have the means, you have to see that I at least gave you something that you can work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you were, going to work and then studying the Kaplans until the wee hours, you obviously had to sacrifice hanging out with friends, girls. Yeah. How did you stay focused on that and not give in to the pressures of your peers?
I think it's, again, doing a self-assessment about your why and purpose, right? I did not want to be a burden on anyone. And the best way to not be a burden is for you to be solid. And I'm the oldest of 8 siblings. So to me, it's like, you need to do well because you're showing them about the possibility. And I don't know where I weirdly got this, but I always felt that on my back. And it's not even from me feeling like direct pressure. It's just like, come on, man, you got to do something, make it happen. And,
Did you
and
feel
I think
like
it's
an
that
example to them, being the oldest?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was, a lot of them obviously knew some of the things I went through. Like, thankfully, things are a lot better and changed for them, but they knew some of the struggles. And even my little sisters would get so excited when, so one of the cool things about in college, I did so well was that they put me on the side of city buses. And I even have, so like in Albany, New York, my face was plastered on there. It was a billboard. My sister's like, first of all, your head is big, but that is so cool. I said, okay, wait
Classic
a minute.
sister.
Oh yeah, got to bring you back down to earth.
Yeah.
My headshot for at the law firm. Oh, you look so regal. You do look a little old here too.
Oh,
wait, why can't we stop at the first part?
There has to be a little knock. Yeah.
So it's really that, and then
But that's love.
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But then also too, it's like 10 years ago was when I really started not being ashamed of the story about how I got here. That I seen like, well, to me the success is corny. It doesn't have as much oomph to it without also being transparent about the tough stuff, right?
The journey.
And so now I see that as a way to help motivate others, but then also too, it's a reminder to me that when you have like this past week has been a really tough week, just a lot of work going on, this and a third, remember you've had tougher things before. Right now your tough is, I have 17 different things to do in a day and it's a 60-hour day. You're not worried about food.
No.
You have trips planned. You have this. So yeah, it's tough, but keep it in perspective. And I feel like I'm living in an honest state of gratitude. Yeah, you have days where, it could be better. But at the end of it, I just feel so happy and overcome with joy that like I'm really living out a dream. But then again, with the work that I'm doing at Horizons at Foot School and the mentorship stuff that I do, I also feel like I am living out a purpose that's beyond me. And it's something that even goes further than my work as a corporate lawyer. So I say that being an attorney is sort of like a means to the end. I want to do a lot in terms of community involvement, community impact. And I think the journey that I have to be a lawyer with the skill and expertise gives me the credence to be able to do a lot of those things.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you're paying it forward, and that's why you're living in that gratitude. Because it's like, as they say, your cup runneth over, but you're pouring. You were poured into, and now you're pouring into others.
Absolutely. And to me, that's the best way for me paying back those people who helped me out. Like there was a time in undergrad where literally freshman year, I would have gotten kicked out. I was $5,000 short, surprisingly. I guess maybe not surprised. I didn't know what I was doing.
They always
on
find
a
that
FAFSA
5,000.
application.
Yeah.
But and then again, it was me giving someone to work with. So the person who ended up helping me, they knew how good of a student I was and blah, blah, blah. And we had this conversation, and then 3 days later, the financial aid office tells me that my bill was paid.
Wow.
Until this day, she and I are very close. She's been at every sort of marker. When I graduated from law school at Washington University in St. Louis, like all this stuff. And I'm like, I just keep telling her, I was like, I appreciate that. Yeah, even one of my friends, Chris Bryant, who now lives in Texas, it was tough even immediately after law school. You have credit cards maxed out, everything's super expensive. And I just remember just lamenting about all the bar exam fees and having to figure something out. And then he was like, how much you need for blah, blah, blah. And, we're guys. We have the funny banter, this and the third. And my boy just instantly was like, boom, Cash App for me to pay for the fees. And literally when I was talking to him a couple weeks ago, I told him, I said, you never bring this up, but just know, like, I really appreciate that because it was help sowing a seed. He was like, I would not have done that if I did not believe in what you were trying to do. So part of like the kick in the butt that I give myself to continue to be successful is there's so many people that sacrificed in one way or another. So I think the best way I can give them that sort of nod and that really appreciative thank you is by showing them that that did not go in vain. Yeah. And then the step further is showing them I'm trying to be that, what they were for me, for someone else.
Absolutely. Great. So let's talk about being a lawyer. Now, were there some TV lawyers that inspired you or some mentors, or why didn't you go the trial route? Because corporate is completely different. Yeah,
completely different. So the first bug for me of being a lawyer was 2008. The Honorable Judge Luby Harper graduated from Wilbur Cross. He's one of the first, I believe technically second or third African-American Supreme Court justice in Connecticut. But he spoke to us in 2008. And I just remember, it was a moving, but, the typical speech of, I walked down these halls, blah, blah, blah. And it just got me like, oh, wow, yeah, this, greatness can really come from this place. Being at Wilbur Cross, you were told, oh, you're a bad test taker, blah, blah, blah. But then seeing this man come in with such poise and he just had this command. And I was like, I want that.
He
So
was probably dressed to the nines.
oh
too.
yeah, so it was just like that sort of pursuit. But then to your point about, well, with corporate, it was me just going through law school saying, well, what is it that I feel can help me stand out? I do my thing with different causes, but I felt like I knew I didn't want to be like a civil rights attorney. I didn't want to do employment and things of that nature. What is it out there that you can do that you felt was like positive? So I was like, oh, securities and corporate. I have no idea what this is. Businesses. Okay, let me work with that. So it was me really diving in a piece that I knew nothing about. And I said, let's do this until you can articulate why you don't want to do this. I knew why I didn't want to be a criminal trial lawyer. I knew these other things. I had specific reasons why I didn't want to do those, but didn't have one for corporate. So I jumped into it. And it's the joke that I tell my friends and family. I say, you don't call me when you're in trouble. You call me when you don't make money. So that's sort of like my tagline for that. And it's just been great. Like my barber, who's been my barber, he cut my hair when I was in high school. Now being back connected with him. And I'm like, your LLC, do you ever have an operating agreement? What's that? I'm like, oh gosh. All right, let me get you an operating agreement. Let me do this. So it's just fun being able to assist in that way. And it's not like, I got a speeding ticket. It is, no, can you help me with something for my business? Yes, I can do that.
Right,
so,
right.
yeah.
You're not defending against something that may have been a mistake, but you're actually opening doors to something that could become something great.
Exactly.
It's going in the other direction.
Exactly.
I love that you're working with startups and venture capital because we have a lot of startup clients.
Yeah.
I mean, our original slogan used to be we're the startup specialists. Now we launch brands, but startups, that really piqued my interest. So tell me a bit about that and how deep you get into VC funds and M&A and things like that. Yeah.
So at Wiggin, we have an emerging companies and venture capital practice group, which I'm in, and yes, it's a mouthful, but all of that's just fancy talk to say that we have a real from startup to from formation to liquidity and exit event sort of full suite of services in that regard. And for me, I just love working with the busy entrepreneur. There's like so much going on, and I really say that my value as an attorney to you would be either it's through adding value or relieve stress. Hopefully I can ideally do both of those. And some of the stress relieving things are, you're like, Jermaine, I need X, Y, and Z. I'm like, I got it. And you don't have to worry about it until I get it back to you to sign off on it. And then just understanding, hey, he's trying to run the business. He's doing this and doing that. Hey, can you please respond to this by this time? If you need me to explain to you more about what this document is, I'm happy to do it here. Any time of the hour works, because I know you may be working late to get these other things done. And it's really just realizing that. And I just love it because you're really helping them sort of realize a dream. And 9 out of 10, these entrepreneurs are trying to make it so that way they can do something well for their family. And just having that small little piece is very fun for me. And I think one of the things that I do enjoy a lot, though, is telling startups, I said, hey, reach out to us first before you do anything. Because a lot of times they're just thinking about the idea, the branding of their stuff, but then not thinking about the boring stuff of your corporate governance, having certain paperwork in line, who owns the IP, and which is always a big issue because you're like, oh, we do this. Oh, yeah, Johnny, he's been working. I'm like, so the company doesn't own the intellectual property in which you are going to be making your money? No. I've known him for 7 years. Oh, my dear. No. So
let's have a conversation.
Yeah. So it's really helping with that. And then, being able to have those tough conversations with them and think about, hey, like, so let's make sure these housekeeping things in order so that way we can continue to build, but building off of what? A solid foundation. Yeah. And that's what I try to come with. And like, even when I speak at last year, I got the chance to speak at Yale's Innovation Summit, which is like this big, huge 2-day event for startups and investors and stuff like that. And I was speaking to them about how to build an optimal board of directors there. And I think the best benefit that I have is I try to just speak to the common person about it. Like, yes, if you want me to use the huge legalese, I can do that if it impresses you. But I'm just going to tell you the real of, hey, your board probably shouldn't consist of you, your mom, and your younger brother. You should probably do this, and this is why. And it's just something that I really try to do because like there's so much happening that I want to be a trusted guide and resource that you're like, hey, man, can we do blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, hey, man, yes, you can. And this is all the legal reasons why, and let's move forward. So I just try to be approachable with it. So that way the big hairy stuff can seem manageable.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of education along the way. I'm sure you're helping them with NDAs and contracts and things like that.
Yes.
Operating agreements.
Yep, operating agreements. You're right. NDAs, confidential information, and invention assignment agreements. We do all of that. And then also, too, it's just a conversation, right? Again, I spoke about earlier of the self-assessment. So the same way you need to do a self-assessment for your own personal dreams and goals, you should be doing that self-assessment for your business, right? So where is it that you want to be in 6 months, a year, 3 years? And as you know, like any real successful business owner, they're thinking at least a year, 2 years down the line, because the decisions you make now are going to have an impact on that. Well, are you in growth and scaling stage? Well, if you're really focused on growth and scaling stage, you probably need to also make sure that those corporate housekeeping things are in line, because an investor wants to see that before they invest $1.5 million in their business. I got to know that you can handle knowing where the IP is located and you don't have an exorbitant interest rate on some promissory note before I give you this money and see that you're going to mismanage the money.
You said a nil. I just know that some folks aren't going to know what that is.
Yeah. So, but it's all of that. It's all of that with the knowledge that I have from working with so many various clients, that I try to say, one, where are you at in knowing about these different terms and ideas with it? And if you're like, I don't know much, great. I'm the perfect person for you, because I'm going to bring it down to the level you can understand. And then I'm going to coach you up. So then that way, for the next round, you're like, all right, Jermaine, we need to do a series seed round funding. And I'm like, I'll check you out. I got you. All right. What are we doing? Are we doing preferred stock? Are we doing convertible debt? And like, so and it's that sort of approach that I take with it. So.
Excellent. I mean, in New Haven itself is such a entrepreneurial.
Oh yeah.
All of Connecticut, really, but there's so many of these startup incubators, accelerators,
it's so fun.
Concord.
Yep.
You're probably doing work
Next
with the lab.
Haven. There's so much out there. Yeah.
It's encouraging, and especially like whenever there's economic uncertainty, you see a spike in new business creation.
Yep.
Which is encouraging. We get calls sometimes. I take calls of people that are like in the early stages, and they start talking about, well, I want to do this for profit, but can I create a nonprofit where people can donate to the nonprofit and then they can pay to the for profit? And I just put my hands up like, sounds fishy.
You want to call an attorney.
So we're not ready to design your logo just yet, because those are, I guess the internet is good and bad in that way, where some folks start doing their own research. They think they can get things done on LegalZoom. To save a few dollars, but it sounds to me like the best advice would be to contact an attorney like yourself.
Yeah. I tell people, hey, you want to do some research up front to at least know the questions to ask, right? Because the clock, the meter's running. Okay, attorneys are an expense, and I tell startups owners, you have to think about your legal representation being a part of that. If you want the bargain mart legal representation, you may find some bargain mart practices that you may have within your startup. And that may not carry for you down the line if you're trying to get a sophisticated investor to buy into the company. So you need startup owners really need to think about their legal expenses of being a part of that. And then also too, piggybacking right next door is the CPA and accountant. So a lot of times you have some people, I'm sure people probably know what GAAP principles are, and people want to know if you're GAAP compliant. And if you're not GAAP compliant with accounting, well, what are the deviations from that? Having an accountant from ground one when things are super simple, especially if you have like an LLC with only 2 to 3 people, knowing that that's good then helps you build from there if you're having more complicated arrangements from there. But it starts with saying like, yes, my taxes for the past 10 years are in that folder, and we can go through there and I can help you with that. So, and as simple as it sounds, you'll be surprised at how many companies have been operating for years and just they do good business, but yet when it's time to like pull back, look under the hood, you're like, how have you been operating with all your documents looking like this? And it's like, oh, they put all of the focus in the creative and the design and all this. And so that shine and carry through. But if you have someone who's going to be a stickler, dotting I's and crossing T's, things may start to crumble. And having good legal representation at the start really helps you, so that way down the line you're not worried about that.
Yeah, especially if you have the exit in mind. If you're thinking of if you're thinking of, hey, this is legacy, my kid wants to take this over, then you might get away with it not being completely by the book.
Yeah.
But if you have hopes of being acquired, somebody is going to open that circuit breaker and look at all the wires in there.
So my pushback on that would be too, is that even thinking about if you want legacy, be honest. Your kids may think differently about the company.
True.
Have you? Do you know that they want to be in the laundry business with you? Huh? All right. You don't want it. Yeah. You don't want it to happen. A week after you done gone off the glory, and then your kids are trying to find the operating agreement to sell your company. Help them.
Right.
So again, it's again having all that in store, and when you think about it, really is like with legacy building, it is showing like a best practice. So lawyers, we can be extremely annoying because we're asking so many different questions. We're picking at this, picking at that, but it's to make sure that we follow a best practice, right? Because my thing is, if you follow the guidance that we're giving, if the IRS or somebody else knocks on the door, you're cool as a cucumber. Yeah, go check that file right there. You want me to get you a coffee while you go look? Because I know we good.
Right, I'm chilling.
And it's that sort of aspect. Because again, as being a lawyer that works a lot with startup owners, they're so busy. So if I can help calm you down a little bit, knowing you have sound, astute counsel, but also too, you have a real human being who you can have a conversation with, that's something that I hold and I champion. Because I do feel like sometimes being a lawyer, it's so much like, oh, well, blah, 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 that we tend to push people away. So I try to be approachable. And my thing too is that if you're paying me high dollar, I should be able to have some semblance of a relationship with you. So that way you feel, well, all right, that Jermaine may not be my friend, but he's someone who I could feel like I know. I feel like I know what gets him ticks, and I feel like he understands me as a person too. Because your business, I don't care what kind of business it is, it's going to have a little bit of your personality in it. So I need to know the person behind the business, so that way I can really make sure I'm providing you advice that works for that. For instance, you have someone who's risk averse. Well, okay, so they may really want me to make sure everybody down to the line has an NDA for this, that, and the third. Other people, let's just focus on this, that, and the third. And obviously, I'll advise if I see a wrinkle that there should be a deviation from that plan, but it's just, all right, I know this person. That's not one of their concerns. Let me focus on what their concerns are, and then I can possibly ease them into things that, from a best practice, I would like them to cover. And I think it's knowing your client.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're a blessing to our community, because we just don't have, meaning like most Black and brown or minority or even first generation business owners, just don't have the resources to really get the mentorship that they might need, or get the advice that they might need. We're hustlers.
Yep, for sure.
We're damn good business people, and we know how to work hard. But I think you're going to be a blessing to the community with just providing those checks and balances, those documents that we may not be thinking about, that we need, like you said, for legacy and so forth. So what's next for you at Wiggin and Dana? Is there ever going to be like Wiggin, Dana, and Brookshire?
No. So, I mean, my goal right now is I'm a 5th-year associate. I'm hoping within the next year or so to be promoted to counsel. And just really, Wiggin has been very good to me. So I'm really, supplanting my feet in there, wanting to grow there and help bring in great business. I know that eventually down the line, I'm going to possibly take a break in 10 years or so from being a lawyer to dive into a deeper level of community service that may require people to vote for me, but we'll call that down the line.
Governor of Berkshire, maybe.
So
President Berkshire.
So we'll figure that out. Definitely wanting to stay in Connecticut, but it's just about the service, right?
Absolutely.
And the 5 steps to success: dream, plan, execute, achieve, and give back. Even though I'm living a dream right now, being a lawyer, I'm still dreaming, right? Yeah. And part of that dream is me figuring out how I can give back and give a greater impact.
Yeah, well, it's incredibly inspiring, and it's contagious. So I will ask you to just paint the ideal client for Wiggin and Dana, and what would be the best way for them to reach you if somebody, we're looking for your services?
Yeah, so for in our practice group, we work with small businesses to very large ones. I also do healthcare business transactions as well. So it's really, you have an idea and you are at least honest with yourself and know that there's a lot of things that you don't know about the business behind your business, then you should reach out and get some sound counsel. We work a lot with different investment management companies and this, that, and third as well. So we're also good to be able to help connect you with different investors and, help you look at an LOI and see, what that proper investment term should be for your business. So, and you can reach me at Jermaine Brookshire at Wiggin.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm pretty much everywhere trying to do various speaking events. I'm well connected with the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. So again, Wiggin.com is the place to go.
Excellent. Yeah, and I enjoyed our panel discussion we had at the Big Connect. That was a lot of fun. And listen, man, there's no doubt in my mind that whatever you put your mind to, you're going to achieve it. And I appreciate all the gems you dropped on our show today.
Thank you. This was great. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode of Mission Control. Until next time, this is your host, Ramon Peralta with Peralta Design, and we launch brands.